The movie opens with an Amber Alert for an 8-year-old boy, Alton Meyer, abducted from his home, winnowing through the state of Texas and adjoining areas. A man named Roy Tomlin, accused of the abduction, sees the breaking news with his childhood friend and state trooper, Lucas, in a motel while little Alton reads comic books under a bedsheet tent. Roy approaches Alton, who for some reason doesn't seem to be scared of him and adheres to what is asked of him. The three leave the motel at nightfall, but the motel clerk sees them leaving with a child and immediately calls the police. Alton wears a pair of goggles and doesn't remove them even in the car, and after their location is tipped off, they travel in complete darkness by turning off the headlights. Meanwhile, at a ranch exists a religious cult where Pastor Alton Meyer dispatches 2 of his dilettantes to retrieve the boy before walking onto the dais to preach that night's sermon to a hall full of people. However, the FBI disrupts their assembly and is there to detain all the members of the ranch. Pastor Calvin is taken in for questioning about the large number of firearms the ranch has in its possession. Must be forgetting they're in Texas, and they are soon joined by National Security Agency communications analyst Paul Sevier. Paul asks Pastor Calvin if he knows the numbers and words he's using in his sermon, including sensitive government data that is transferred by satellite through a heavily encrypted format. Pastor Calvin confides that the information came from Alton and that he adopted Alton after his birth mother, Sarah, had abandoned him. Here, he reveals that Roy is Alton's biological father, and Alton would have fits, and he would speak in tongues, sometimes unknown languages, that Pastor Calvin would record as their scriptures and considered it to be the word of the Lord. Paul also conducts interviews with the members of the ranch and tries to find the significance of the date, March 6th, which one of the members confirms is the Judgment Day. Meanwhile, Lucas and Roy get into trouble when, upon witnessing an accident that they barely avoided, Lucas stops to check on the injured woman. Soon, a state trooper arrives, but he recognizes their car, and to prevent him from calling backup, Roy shoots him down. Still, Lucas sends for a dispatch before fleeing with Roy. It is the next morning and they take cover at the home of Eldon, a former ranch member who provides them with everything they need before leaving them be. Roy and Lucas are resting when an earthquake suddenly wakes them up, and Roy rushes to Alton's room, where he finds Eldon having the most intense staring contest with Alton. Roy knocks Eldon off with a lamp and pulls Alton away from direct sunlight, which seems to hurt his eyes. The earthquake is so severe that the wall sinks into the ground, creating a large gap between the roof and the wall. And Lucas, who rushes in a few seconds later, is stunned to see the damage. Roy is very protective of his son, which is why he's taking his son away from the ranch that has been worshiping and listening to the prophecies of Alton, even going so far as to flip their services to the nighttime because Alton can't be out during the day. They continue their journey as night falls and take Eldon's truck. Lucas worries that Alton looks weaker, but Roy believes Alton will get better. They stop at a convenience store to get some supplies, and Roy goes to make a call at the phone booth. Alton is sitting alone in the van when something catches his attention, and as he looks up the sky, he walks out of the van, never losing sight of the twinkling lights in the sky. Luckily, Roy spots him and runs towards him, pulling him to safety before the bright lights start falling onto them. It turns out to be burning debris, and they narrowly escape being hit by one. They drive to Sarah's house, and Sarah embraces Alton upon meeting him after 2 long years. After putting Alton to bed, the three sit together and discuss the future course of action. Roy suggests they stick to the plan and reach a place that Alton had named in one of his trance-like state before March 6th. The next day, Paul meets the other FBI personnel at the gas station to discuss the events of last night. Alton supposedly had brought down the Air Force satellite that destroyed the station and the convenience store, which made the headlines the following day. Alton, Roy, Sarah, and Lucas leave in the evening to continue their journey, and when Sarah asks Alton if he meant to destroy the satellite, Alton affirms and says it was necessary as the police were watching him. Unbeknownst to them, the two parishioners Pastor Calvin has sent are high on their trail. Somewhere in the night, Alton suddenly starts gasping for air and his eye glows bright, blinding his parents and Lucas for a few seconds. Alton is growing weaker and sicker by the hour, but Roy refuses to take Alton to the hospital as he feels Alton is meant for something big. Alton suddenly instructs them to leave the house because people are coming after them. He asks Sarah and Lucas to go ahead while he tags along with Roy and directs him to a cave in the woods. Alton can barely walk, and Roy decides to wait out the day in the cave before resuming their trek, but Alton wishes to be awake during the day and convinces Roy to let him see the sun. The following morning, Roy and Alton wait for the sun to rise, and when the first rays of sunlight shine on Alton, he starts shaking violently, as does the ground beneath them. Alton's eyes glow, and a massive wave of energy is released from him that takes the shape of a dome, engulfing both of them. Sarah and Lucas make their way to a motel and wait for Roy and Alton to return. It is still daylight when Alton and Roy return, leaving Lucas perplexed, seeing Alton look healthy. Alton makes them sit and tells them that he has realized his purpose on the earth and explains that there is a world built on top of ours and people like him inhabit it. His eyes and hand glow as he speaks, and Roy confirms that he saw that world too, even if it was for a few seconds. Sarah can't shake the feeling that Alton may not belong with him, and on a fateful day, he might be gone forever. They are ready to leave, and Lucas is the first to step out, but he gets shot in the chest by Pastor Calvin's trackers, and they subdue Roy before going after Alton. They kidnap him and tie Sarah to the tower handle, but she breaks the handle and helps Roy and Lucas by using a Swiss knife Lucas hides in his boots to cut open their cable ties. They chase the kidnappers, but they're late as the authorities have already got to them and airlifted Alton into their custody. Alton is handed to the NSA, who takes him to a facility where he is made to sit in a room and made to wear goggles. Several officials come in to witness Alton's interview with a child development counselor, but Alton surprises everybody when he asks for Paul and says he'll only talk to him. He has no way of knowing about Paul, yet he somehow knows his name and his designation. Everybody is sent out, and Paul remains alone behind the mic, but Alton wants him to come into the room he's held in, and for that, he glitches the camera to make it appear as if Alton had been sitting there the whole time. He even unlocks the door for Paul to enter the room, and when he does, Alton dismisses the claims of him being a weapon or a savior and explains he belongs in another world and needs to return, and then proceeds to show him this world. Devastated after losing Alton, Roy walks aimlessly when a public phone ringing nearby breaks his trance. He runs to pick it up, and Paul talks from the other end, telling him he has Alton and gives him the coordinates to the destination he deduced from Alton's sermons and asks Roy to meet there in a few hours. The coordinates land them near a swamp where Alton reunites with his parents and Lucas. Paul warns them that the FBI knows where they are headed and everything will be blocked off within a 5-mile radius on the Florida Panhandle, making it difficult to get through. But Alton says he can help, and they soon leave. Paul asks for Lucas's handcuffs and cuffs himself to erase his involvement. Roy makes Sarah and Alton wear a bulletproof vest, one of which had saved Lucas's life from the ranch abductors. Roy and Lucas lead the soldiers on a wild goose chase while Sarah and Alton escape into the woods. They reach a swamp, and Alton's eyes start glowing as the earth tremors, and a massive release of energy creates a dome over Florida and adjoining states, and everybody engulfed in the dome can see the futuristic structures of the other world Alton had talked about. Soon, Alton is surrounded by beings of the other world, and he smiles one last time at his mother before the other world disappears along with him. Roy and Lucas are taken into custody after their car overturns during the chase. They are questioned extensively, but the FBI dismisses Lucas's story as they find it hard to believe, so they send Paul for questioning, but Lucas stays quiet, acknowledging his help in reuniting Alton with them. Sarah cuts off her braid at a gas station, apparently walking away from her past life. Roy is jailed, and as he's taken to a cell, he is allowed to see the sun for a few minutes, and when he looks at it, his eyes glow ever so slightly, just like Alton's did. And that's a wrap for this movie recap. Thanks for watching.